With all of us struggling for time, how about maximum marketing impact with the least possible effort? Sounds good, doesn't it? Well, here to help me navigate today is my good friend Adam Chatterley, the no-fluff business coach who deals only in systems that work to provide guaranteed and predictable results. Let's get him on the show, shall we?
All on Build Your Salon.
Adam, welcome to the Build Your Salon podcast.
Thanks, Phil. It's great to be here. Thank you very much. I can't help dancing along to that jingle.
It's a lovely little joke. There is a longer version, but you only get the longer version on the audio only, I'm afraid, and everybody wants to see your beautiful face.
Thank you
So
very
it
much.
feels remiss that it's been such a long time to actually get you on the Build Your Salon podcast after
It's been
how
noted.
many
It has been
million noted. After how many million years we've known each other. But for those who don't know you, why don't you give us a little intro of who you are and what you do?
Cool. Okay. How long have you got? So I've been in the beauty industry for 24 years. I originally started out working with spas within kind of high 5-star hotels. I call those my corporate days. That was probably about the first 15 years of my career. And I basically flew around the world opening up spas in the likes of Sheraton's and Jumeirah's and Orient Express hotels and things like that. And whilst I didn't design the spas, I was the guy that they brought in to basically figure out whether these beautifully designed multi-million-pound spas were actually going to make any money. So I was sort of the aesthetic designer spa's worst enemy, because they beautifully build this spa that had a 7-story waterfall in the foyer, and I'd come along and go, yeah, we'll get rid of that. We'll put a few more treatment rooms in. Don't bother with the result, because that's never going to make you any money. So that's basically what I did for years. And there was a few ill-fated projects where I just started to fall out of love with the corporate world. And one particular very, very well-known business just killed my enthusiasm for working with corporates forever. And unfortunately, at the time, I'd started working with a couple of quite high-end independent hotels. One was the Scarlet Hotel in Cornwall, which is probably to this day my favourite hotel in the UK. And I just realised that working with independents, I was able to get results for them much more quickly, because they could make the decision there and then, and we could get to work the next day. Whereas if anyone's ever worked with corporates, they take 2 years to make a decision, by which point it's been watered down to the point of it was nothing like you actually designed in the first place. So the results that you get are equally watered down and not as effective and not as quick. So that was it for me. I just decided I wanted to work more and more with independents, and I realized the way to do that was by coaching. So it was never like a particularly strategic plan to become a coach rather than a consultant, but ever since I started doing it, I've never looked back. So now I help a lot more people in a more virtual way, but that's essentially what I do now.
Mm-hmm. And the title of the episode we've called the Attention Flywheel. Why don't you introduce that as a concept for us as well?
Yeah, so I've noticed working with the clients that I work with, I think it's fairly safe to say nobody for their business loves doing social media. And yet social media has become this kind of necessary evil. We all realize we've got to do some sort of social media for our business in order to be discovered and for reach and all those kind of things. But I don't think it's any top of anyone's list. I don't think anyone started a beauty business to be like, because I really want to do loads of social media. And we started noticing this pattern with a lot of, not just my clients, but with businesses in general, as to how people actually now discover a business and then the steps they take to find out more about it. And it probably took a good kind of 8 months to come together in what I now refer to as the attention flywheel, because it was just kind of this rattling around in my head for ages. I was like, there's got to be a way to manipulate this process and actually build it into our marketing. So the best way to describe it is kind of like, imagine someone had recommended a restaurant to you, Phil. Mm-hmm. So a person you know had recommended a restaurant. What's the first thing that you likely do?
Probably Google it.
Google it, of course you do.
Yeah.
So you're like, because I want to find out, where it is it still in business? Do I like the vibe? Are the prices like crazy, or am I going to be
Feeling
okay?
incredibly smug that I got the right answer to that, by the
You
way.
did
You
get the
did
right
put
answer. Well,
put me on the spot there, rather.
So, we all do this. Any business that's recommended, any film, pretty much anything that's recommended, we just go and Google it because we want a bit more information. And one of a few things happen when we Google it. You'll likely either come up against their website or one of their social medias.
Mm-hmm.
And either way, it doesn't matter. You're going to click on the first thing that you think is in this case, the restaurant that your friend recommended. So let's say it's the website that shows up first. So you get to the website, and subconsciously, you've got a bunch of questions in your mind as to whether or not you're going to continue on with looking at this restaurant. And they're usually things like, is it located somewhere near me?
Mm-hmm.
Do I kind of like the vibe? Does the food look like food I'd like? Is the price like something I want to spend, or is it kind of astronomically out of this world?
Mm-hmm.
So you want these questions answered really, really quickly. And as long as you get onto the website and it loads quickly and it looks okay and it's easy to navigate and all those kind of things, you're probably not going to look at every single page on the website. You're not going to devour every word that's on there.
Mm.
You just want to kind of get this general feeling that, yes, this is kind of my vibe. I want to find out more. So you're on the website. You probably then look at the homepage. You get some information. You maybe click on the About page to find out some more. But then what do you do? I'm putting you on the spot again now. So once you've been around the website, what's the next thing that you do?
Oh gosh, it depends how convinced I am. I would either, probably the socials would be next. I think.
There you go.
Because you don't get the vibe on the website, do you?
No. So you go you look in the upper right hand corner of the website or down in the footer for where the socials are, because this is what we've been trained to do, and you click on whichever social media platform is most familiar to you. So Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever. So you click on one of those. And I think the reason we do that is, like you say, you get a more up-to-date vibe. You get to see what other people think about it. You get to also find out, whether they're still in business. This part of this idea came from the fact that obviously I now live in Valencia. And we kept getting recommended these restaurants, but things open and close so quickly over here that we'd get recommended a restaurant by someone, and then a couple of weeks later we'd go and try and find it, and it closed down. So over here we noticed that you go on the socials to basically be like, well, are they still in business? And I think subconsciously we do this all the time. So if you go onto again, let's stick with the restaurant example, you go onto a restaurant and they've not posted since November, there's this little thing in your mind that goes, oh, well, maybe they've closed down, or maybe they're rubbish now and nobody wants to go there, which is why they've not posted. And that in and of itself may make you back off and go, yeah, no, don't want to go any further with this. I'm going to go to my usual favorite restaurant and not try something different. So there's all these kind of little triggers that go off, and I think we all follow this same path. And it's the reason I call it a flywheel. And by the way, if no one knows what a flywheel is, flywheel is something that's inside of a machine or a car or an engine or something like that. And essentially it stores momentum, which means two things. One, once it's going, it's very hard to slow it down and stop. And two, it only needs a small amount of energy to keep going. And that's how I'm kind of envisaging this as a marketing strategy, because no matter how someone heard about you in the first place, they're always going to take these next steps. So let's say someone found you on social media first. They're still then going to go to your website and look at the website as well after being on your social media. They may even message some friends and go, has anyone been to that new restaurant on the high street? So we still want to hit these spots. We just don't always hit them in the same order.
Okay.
So the idea behind the attention flywheel is that we want all of these key spots on the internet, which are always there, always working for us. A, we want them findable. B, we want them representing our current business and our current brand and who we work with and the right vibe and our colors and everything like that. But we also want them all connected to each other. So a person landing on one can very, very easily take that next step to another and another and another, so that they kind of go around this flywheel. But as much as every single point wants linking to the next one, every single one also needs a very clear way to take the next step. So if in our example, you went to their website first, but from the website, you weren't ready to make a booking yet. You wanted to go and look at their Instagram account. So you go and look at their Instagram, and the reviews are really good, and you think it looks fun, and you think you like the vibe. Maybe then from the Instagram account, because you're familiar with doing this, you want an option to make a booking from there. So you want, an easy link in bio, click through to their reservations. But equally, someone else might want to go back to the website. So you want a way in that Instagram account to go back to the website and then to make a reservation or ask a question or something like that. So the idea of the flywheel is everything's connected together, but equally at any point, there's an easy option for your client, your potential client, to take that next step.
So let me just summarize where we're up to and what I'm hearing you say then. So what we're basically mapping out then is kind of, I think that there's a lot of businesses that are starting to get to grips with the customer journey once they actually physically arrive in the salon. It's almost like what you're describing is that customer journey ahead of that kind of inquiry, tire kicking, trying to find out more about a business. So we're kind of trying to map out that, and then you put this flywheel model together, which is possibly, the way you explained it, by the way, the most heterosexual thing I think we've ever heard on the Build Your Salon podcast. So well done. That was so butch and so machinery orientated. It was glorious.
Maybe we've just found why it's the first time I've been invited on.
It's fine. You're here to butch us all up. We did Pride Month and now we're ready for machinery and motors. So my question off the back of that then is, I've been banging a drum for a long time now, and I think there is an obsession in the salon industry and the salon and spa world with social media. And I don't think it's necessarily a good way of getting new clients. I think we put a disproportionate amount of effort into getting new clients, because I don't think people go from watching videos of people shampooing rugs to booking hair and beauty appointments. I just don't think that flow happens. Are you saying then that maybe that's because we're seeing that as an isolated instance or an isolated contact point rather than part of that bigger customer journey?
100%. Yeah. No one lands on your Instagram, watches one or two reels and goes, this is for me. They want that extra touch points. There's a lot of other things coming out now. I think Google did a study, and they found that the average person wants 7 touch points with a business before they make a purchase or book in or go to that business. Those touch points can be as little as, one might be an email, one might be visiting their Instagram platform once, one might be watching a YouTube video, one might be reading an email. All these different touch points. The average is about 7. And then there's another thing that came out from Harvard about 27 minutes. Have you heard about this?
Yeah. Why don't you talk us through that?
So the 27 minutes thing is, if you are, there's 2 numbers. There's 47 minutes and 27 minutes. And there's this study that's found that if you consume 27 minutes in the case of a local brick and mortar business, if you consume 27 minutes worth of their content, then you are something like 78% more likely to move forward and make a booking with that business. The 47 minutes comes from if you're not a local business. So there's an inherent, additional amount of trust if you're a local business, because they know where you are. You're on the high street. If there's an issue, they can go and find you and they can ask questions and stuff like that. So 27 minutes. So that might be, if you think about it, let's say you get someone onto your email list and you send them 3 emails each, which takes 3 minutes to read. That's 9 minutes that they've consumed. Maybe they watch a few of your reels, which might be another 4 minutes. Maybe do a quick YouTube video and they watch that, and that's 7 minutes. The point is, if you can get people to consume 27 minutes of your content, they're so bought in by that point that they're much more likely to actually become a client. So all these studies are coming out about, touch points and watch time or consumption time. And in my example, this kind of hopping between your always on various online assets that help promote your business. So yeah, it's exactly that. It's this kind of pre-customer journey that I don't think any of us even consciously think about, but we all do the same thing whenever we hear about a business.
I think so off the back of that, I have a question, but first of all, a small observation, in that I think part of the problem when you've got an overemphasis solely on social media is, by definition, everything you're putting out there is very, very short-lived. And actually, if we start to bring in some of the other elements of the attention flywheel, we've got some stuff which has got a bit more longevity around it. There's stuff hangs around. Websites hang around a lot more than social media posts, for example. But my question is, and I alluded to this in my wonderful introduction, in that we are all scrabbling around trying to find enough time for the stuff that we're doing. How on earth do we find time to give attention to more platforms?
Well, that's the thing. I'm not saying you need to be on every platform. If we really think about it, it's Instagram and Facebook are the two main social platforms that we're talking about here.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's sensible to have, because exactly what you said, those two platforms alone are very short-lived. I think the average life of a post on Facebook, it's gone up actually. I think it's like 3 days, shorter on Instagram, non-existent on TikTok. But those can be the kind of the short things that you put out to get short-term attention. But let's say you just had a couple of YouTube videos, one, let's say, being just a quick tour of your salon or your clinic, another one of you talking people through your signature treatment that you do and why you do it and how you designed it that way. So maybe just one or two videos that you can keep referring people back to as an additional form of content. So I'm not saying you have to create loads of additional content. That would be hell on earth. But these kind of pillar pieces that you can keep referring people back to that last a longer time than just the everyday social media that you do. And the point of the flywheel, and the key pillars on here are essentially your website, your primary social media platform, if you do have a secondary one as well, secondary social media platform, Google My Business, and those are kind of the key ones, because like you said, people Google something, so we want to make sure we're Google's friend. So we've kept our Google business profile up to date. We occasionally just tickle it with putting an update on there so that Google likes us. We're getting reviews, so we've risen up the rankings. We've thought about our keywords, again, so that we're showing up for the right searches. Then our website, make sure it's up to date in terms of the treatments you offer, the people that you're actually looking for. Make sure that's kind of set up. And then the social medias, I think, realistically, if you've got this flywheel working for you, you don't need to do as much posting. You certainly don't need to do as much posting. One quality post a week, maybe even, is enough just to keep the attention coming into the flywheel so that people can then hit all the other spots. So I don't think it's about posting more. It's about having everything set up.
Is Uncle Adam giving us permission to post less on social media?
100%.
Oh,
I would say post much more thought about content, an awful lot less. I think you can post twice a week, and providing you've got these pillars in place that are working for you all the time, that's all people really want when they discover you, because the volume that you're putting out of social media doesn't increase the number of people that find you. The quality does. So if you produce one high quality reel a week, that's going to get pushed out to more people. They're going to find you. Then they enter the flywheel. And as long as you've spent just a bit of time setting up those other things in advance, always working for you, then the flywheel itself only needs a very small amount of attention each month to keep it spinning. Because if you think about it, your website, once done, probably only needs to check on every 3 months. Google My Business profile, probably about 15 minutes every month just to keep Google happy, as long as you've got reviews regularly coming in and things like that. Again, systematize the reviews. That's another big thing I talk about. Make sure you're not just waiting for people, hoping for people to leave reviews. Actually systematize that process and make sure people are constantly, regularly, consistently giving you new reviews. If you've got all those things going, then yeah, I think the social media side of it can be dialed back massive amount. Because like I said earlier on, if someone finds you through this process, which is universal, when they go to your social media, no one's judging you by how many posts you put out this week, or how many reels you've done, or did you do 7 stories consistently for the past 7 days. What they're doing is they're going on there. They just want to know, have you posted recently? Therefore, are you still in business? And are you sharing things that align with the stuff they've already seen about your business? So it's not like they've gone onto your website and you're all talking about laser hair removal and suddenly they go onto your Instagram platform and you're talking about the latest microneedling thing, which can be a kind of a jar. They just want to know that they're in the right place and have those mental boxes ticked. And as long as you put a post out within the last 7 days, therefore showing that you're still in business, and that's consistent for you. That's really all people want to see from the social media from a local business.
And I guess part of that is because we're not relying on the fact that it's a recent post. And we're not relying on the algorithm seeing a recent post to get it in front of people, because we've got the other elements of the flywheel that are pushing people in that direction anyway.
Exactly.
So have you got a few examples of the kind of content that people might want to put into these different spaces? So website, I think we can kind of assume is, as long as it's up to date, relevant and aligned with your branding and values, we can kind of tick that box. But in terms of Google My Business then and social media, what kinds of things should we be shifting the emphasis to if we're not doing this kind of continual tail chasing 18 posts a week?
Cool. So, well, just for you, Phil, I've put together a handy checklist of how to build your own. Basically, just for you. Well, just for you and your listeners. Now, I've put together a checklist so you can kind of go through this process and check off how your own assets match with the idea of the flywheel. So you can go through these processes. But actually, starting with the website, I think there's about 7 immediate unconscious questions that we want answered in our brains that we don't even realize when we go to someone's website. And the first one is often talked about, does it load quickly? I still think to this day, if we go to a website and it takes more than about 1.5 seconds to load on our phones, we've immediately lost interest and we've gone somewhere else, which is crazy when you think about it. Because it's like, why should the speed of my website remotely determine how well I cook a meal or serve food or perform a treatment or anything like that? But we do, because we're like, oh, no, wasting my time. I'm going to go somewhere else. So we go back to Google and we click on the second option down the list. So speed of your website loading. Is it mobile optimized? Again, I know these are things that kind of people go on about all the time, but not just optimized for mobile, but these days built for mobile. Let's face it, 86% of people are looking at things on their mobile. So again, if you've got a beautiful website, but the second I go on it, a pop-up appears on the screen that absolutely obliterates everything on the screen and I can't get rid of it, I'm going straight back to Google and going to the next option. So there's the stupid things like that we mustn't do. But equally, I think when people go onto the website, they want these first quick questions answered. So we talk about above the fold. And this is one of those phrases that I said to someone the other day, thought it was entirely universal, but they didn't have a clue what I was talking about. So there's this phrase, above the fold, which goes back to kind of old-fashioned newspapers when they used to be folded over and sat on a news shelf. So any important news, anything that people really wanted people to know about would be above the fold, i.e. top half of the paper. So what you want on your website is you want to answer some questions very, very quickly without people having to scroll down. So immediately as it appears on their phone, they want to know, A, that they're in the right place, so name of business, who you actually help and what you do, so that they've not accidentally gone onto some other business that does something entirely different, and where you're based. So if you can answer those 3-4 questions immediately as soon as they land on your page, that's going to then encourage them to scroll further down the page and see more. But if they get to a page and the first thing they see is some out of context huge image without a logo, without any kind of information on there, again, the chances of them just going, I'm not sure I'm in the right place, I'm just going to go away, increase. So a few things you can do on your website to do that. And like I said as well, make sure you've got links to your social media platforms from your website in a place that people actually expect to look for them. And one of the things I tell people to do on this checklist, which I cannot believe how often I find this, and I'm sure you do this as well, when I book a discovery call with a potential client, I spend a few minutes just going around their platforms to learn something about them.
Sure.
And it's so often I go to people's website and one or more of their social media icons don't link to anything.
Oh, I love it when we get to a footer and they haven't changed any of the text at all. It's still all the templated stuff that was thrown on there by a web designer at some stage.
Or you click on an Instagram link and it goes to something that sounds like their business name, but maybe at some point they changed their Instagram handle and didn't update their website. So it's silly little things like that that are not, they're just going to put people off continuing on that process with the flywheel. So there's little things like that. Google My Business. I really love Google My Business because you can massively increase your ranking on Google with such a small amount of effort. Essentially, as long as you've actually claimed your Google My Business profile, which I hope everyone has done, and as long as you make sure your hours are correct on there. Make sure the description of your business on there matches the one on your website, matches the one on your socials. So there's no confusion for Google, because again, Google's using more and more AI now to determine its rankings. So if you say one thing about your business on Google which doesn't align with your website, doesn't align on social media, it's going to get confused and it's going to reduce you down the rankings because it wants to give people the best answer. So if everything's aligned, exactly. So if everything's aligned, then it's going to increase you where you appear in searches that you want to appear in online. And then I found a lot of people don't realize that you can actually post updates, and you should actually post updates on Google My Business. Now, updates on Google, you can essentially think of like a social media post, but you only need to do one a month maximum. And the cool thing here is I just cheat. So I basically, whatever I've put out on social media over the course of the past month, whatever got the best response on whatever platform I put it out on, I take that and I just put it on Google Business Profile as my update, because then I know it's aligned with my social media and it got a response from people. So Google's going to like me because I've deliberately gone in and posted something on their platform, which is what people want, which is what Google wants. And then people are going to like it because it's going to align with my other social media and my business, and they're going to respond to it. So really, once a month, on the 15th, I just set a reminder to myself, go and look at my Google My Business profile, make sure everything still works, make sure everything's still aligned, upload a new picture. Google likes that. So upload a new picture, add an update, check my hours, done. That's all you need to do for that. And that's kind of that box ticked for an entire month. So website once every 3 months, Google Business Profile every once a month. And then once you've done that, it really just does come down to social. And yes, I think once you've got these pillars in place and everything's connected to each other, you can absolutely post a lot less, just raise the quality of the post that you're doing.
And while we're talking about websites, do you think there's still a place for a blog?
It's a good question. I think if writing is your most comfortable way of creating content about and around your business, yes, but not necessarily for people to come and read your blog. I think another little system that I'm working on that I haven't told anyone about yet, but I'll tell you, is called the content cascade system. And this is essentially where, rather than you having to feel like you have to sit down and come up with a whole load of content, you figure out what your most comfortable, to use an annoying term, long form method of creation is. So if you're more comfortable writing, then yes, use a blog. If you're more comfortable speaking, then create a video or a podcast or whatever it is. But whatever your most comfortable method for creating some longer form piece of content is, start with that, and then using that and our lovely friends AI, you can drop whatever your long form content is and then essentially say to it, right, take this and using this, pull out the 3 best points I make and create me some reels or a script for some reels or some ideas from some carousel posts or some ideas for a social media post. And that way you're writing something that's relevant about your business to put on your website, because why not? It'll help you with SEO and keeps your website looking fresh, but it actually then creates the content for you to use on the shorter form platforms, which is the thing that most of us hate coming up with the content for in the first place.
Absolutely, and that's something that I do every single week. Is I take my podcast, and that's my chosen, like you said, horrible phrase, but long form bit of content. And I give it to AI, and I say, you have a look at the script, and you find me 3 quotes that I can pull and turn into posts, and I can turn into a carousel, and I can make it into a blog in a couple of weeks' time. So repurposing in that sort of way is a lot easier if you've got that core piece of content right at the heart of everything. So how can people get hold of your checklist?
Well, what I've done is I've bundled it into something else new that I've created, which was accidental. I started writing, so going back to kind of what you feel most comfortable creating. Obviously, I've got the podcast, which I do enjoy creating when I remember to create it. But email is very much my comfort zone. I enjoy writing emails. People like my emails. So a few months ago, I sort of started writing this email every Monday to people on my lists that I called the Monday Money Minute. And the idea was it was a short email that took less than a minute to read, and it just had one single idea in there that, if you did it, would make you more money in your business. Not necessarily help you retire, but just make you more money in your business. And the idea took less than a minute to read. So I just started writing this email, and I started getting so many emails back from people saying they loved this new series, or they love this new concept. It wasn't really a concept, it was just something I wrote a couple of. But because I got that feedback and people responded to it, I thought, well, let's make it a thing. Mm-hmm. So I've now created a newsletter called the Monday Money Minute, and it's exactly that. Every Monday I send an email out with a simple idea. It takes under a minute to read, about 5 minutes to implement, and it will make you some more money in your business. So as to celebrate that, what I've done is, if you sign up to the newsletter, not only will you get the Monday Money Minute, but you'll also get 3 of my most powerful systems, one of which is the complete checklist for the attention flywheel.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. And we will put the link to your newsletter sign up. I'm just making sure we've got it. Yes, we have. I will put that in the description field underneath this video. And
cool, thank you.
What's your favourite way for people to keep in touch?
I would say at the moment, I'm really trying myself to focus more on Instagram. It's never been my kind of number one comfort zone. So my kind of challenge for myself this year is to really focus on that again. Not in terms of volume, more in terms of quality. So I would love it if people would connect with me, follow me, reach out to me on Instagram, which is at Adam Chatterley, or just search for Beauty Business Secrets and you will find me.
And we will put that link in the description as well. So my 3 quick fire questions to round off the episode, Adam. The first is, what is the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Ooh. Well, it would have to be by my favourite accountability partner, which is obviously you.
Favourite? I didn't realise I was part of a polyamorous situation.
Do you know what? It's so trite and it's so overused, but I think it is just to keep it simple, stupid. I have a tendency to massively, instantly overcomplicate things. If I can, from everything, from like if it's an idea for a podcast, if it's an idea for an email, my brain immediately wants to explore every single aspect of it. Nobody else seems to want that much detail. So I think it is just keep it simple in everything you do. Kind of a phrase that I've adopted recently is simple scales, complex fails. And I think that works really well.
And if somebody was going to try and follow in your footsteps, what piece of advice would you leave behind for them?
Which bit of my footsteps? Any particular one?
I mean, not the ones too near the edge of a cliff. the successful bits.
I think. Well, so my mind immediately goes to the podcast, and I wish that I had remained consistent with the podcast throughout. I scarily realised the other day that the first episode of the podcast I published in January 2016. Which seems like a crazy amount of time ago. And I just feel like if I'd stayed consistent with that, I genuinely think it would have been one of the biggest podcasts kind of going now. It's doing okay, don't get me wrong, but I wish I had listened to the advice of staying consistent, even if that meant doing it less often, but remaining consistent, doing it all the way through. So I think with a lot of things in business, it is about boring consistency over everything else.
And I always love this question for people that get to see into different aspects of our industry, but what is the best thing about working with salons?
It's the people. I'm sure you've had that answer a million times, but it is just the people. I love the fact that in this industry, everyone's so caring. Everyone gets into this industry to help people. I don't think anyone gets into this industry purely for the money or really for anything else. People, they just want to help people. So I think that's a really key thing for me. And the fact that I can support the people who help people with their confidence, with how they feel, with how they look, with my skills, which are more the strategic system spreadsheet-based skills. I think that's what I love most. I get to support people doing what they love, so they can help people feel more confident and just enjoy their lives more.
I love that. Thank you so much, Adam, for finally giving up some time to join me on the Build Your Salon podcast, but I'm sure we'll be getting you back on for another episode in the future.
Thank you for having me.
So there we have it. The attention flywheel with Adam Chatterley. What do you think? Why not reach out and let me know? My email address scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now, phil@buildyoursalon.com. Also reach out if you would like to feature as a guest on a future episode of the podcast. I'd love to be sharing your success story with my Build Your Salon podcast listeners. Just 7 short days until I'm coming in your ears again. And until then, take care.